Live soon. You're in the show. Atai te katoa te kite.
Ai, ka tika. Tēnā no tātou katoa. Tātou mā whakatata mai ana I tēnei pō, kānui te mihi. Hoi no, I te kāna iru Māui tuwhera tā tātou nei wāhi kōrero I tēnei rā. Hei a koe iru.
Ngumuri te pō, ngumuri te ao, ngumuri te tai o tangata ki runga ki te ākau o kōrero, ki runga ki tā tātou kaupapa e mai ngā kenei ko Māori Conversations. Tēnei te whakaaro ake ki ngā mate katoa o te wā. O tira, e hone ko koe tonu tērā, I tuku atu rā I tētahi mate I ngā tata nei, ki te pōro tangata, tēnei te mihi atu, kia koutou rā, e pīkau tonu nei I tērā mamai, I tērā mate, I tēnei wā tonu nei, o tira, ki ngā mate katoa o te wā ko rātou kia rātou, ko te mū o te pō kia rātou, ko ngā whitinga o te rā kia tātou, hoki rawa mai kia tātou e noho ora tonu nei, si hei mauri ora ki te whai au ki te ao mārawa. Tēnei hoki te pōhiri mai, I taku anko te kaupapa, me taku māma nei, me taku hikaka kia kai tātou I tā te rangatira kai, I te kōrero. Te mea ana te kōrero, ko tā te rangatira kai, he kōrero, he wānanga, he whakaaro o reira. Tēnei tātou e whitiki tahi nei, e rangatira ake ai tātou katoa o te iwi Māori, āhari ake nei. O reira, huri noa, tēnā tātou.
Ai, kai tika, tēnā no tātou katoa. E hone Māui, me hieno koe ki te kōrero tuatahi kia tātou, hei a koe.
Oh, hono. E mea ana te kōrero. Haere ngā mate, haere ngā karakia, haere ngā kōrero. Kia ora tātou. Koinaro.
Koina. Oh, to see you, cousin. I was showing off with many since we put our signs up on at Waimanoni there and down at your office, and then of course I see your post, and there's Shane's, and there's that Tino post reaching nearly up into into the heavens, and fantastic really, and have a great laugh and a point made really. So when I just aroha nui kia koe. And really, that's, I guess, where we're heading, what we want, what we expect, what we're marching for. So, tēnei he wāhi kia whakaputa te kōrero, e pāniki ngā mea katoa o tātou te Māori. And, I'm, after 40 or more years working in the field, my efforts, my work, and, working with our whānau and our mokopuna particularly, and here we are 44 years later, and we're still, from my own observation and experience, very, very little has changed. I know, and of course, last week in court at the tribunal in Wellington, and sitting with many of my colleagues and listening to them crying about the things that just shouldn't occur for our whānau. Just he pātai atu kia kaurua, really. Just what are you hearing? What do you recall, I guess, Hone, in your years of working close to whānau?
Yeah, I guess it just doesn't change because the system doesn't change. Hey, so regardless of the best intentions, the hardest work, the genuine feeling that we put into trying to change the direction for our whānau, because the system doesn't change and refuses to change, nothing changes. So except we're working harder, but the statistics don't change, and they don't change because the system refuses to change. I guess the court case is step one, has to be step one in the process, taking it to them at the highest level, and challenging the right of government departments to lay down processes for our whānau and for our tamariki. I think for me, the better part of that is not the challenge to the state. but then holding up the mirror and throwing the challenge back to ourselves, which is, okay, if we're saying to the Crown, you're not up to it, and we've got to look at ourselves and our cousins, our brothers and our sisters and our children, and our nephews and our nieces, and the way they're living and the way they're carrying on, and we have to, that's for me is the most important part and the most exciting part, is that challenge is then on us to be better at what it is that we do for ourselves, as role models for those around us, and to try to help lift ourselves going forward. Because at the end of the day, regardless of what the state does, we have to take control of our future. And the good thing about the challenge to the Crown is sending a very clear signal that we've had a gutsful of the way you've done it. I mean, it's Oranga Tamariki now. What was it called? SIFs. It was called SIFs before. I don't, and then, going back to the Puao Te Ata too, a really strong and positive statement about Māori, about tikanga, about our kaupapa, and all of the things that make it appropriate for us to be resourced to do what we do naturally well. But really, we've just never been given the opportunity, and it's because, of course, the Crown simply cannot afford to allow us to be seen to be successful at managing our own society, managing ourselves going forward.
Great.
Shut up, One. Shut up.
No. Yeah. I was in the department back in 1989, 1988, 89, when that act, when the Children's and Young Persons and Their Families Act came through. And we were, heaps of us, Uncle Tia, Uncle Nicky and them, Māori Marsden ma, tātou wa Aussie ma. We were like, yep, this is our time. And 13 recommendations just agreed with what we instinctually knew would work. And then we had people like John Rangiho, of course, and you had the DG. He was a willing man. And of course, then we gave it a go, and judges were interested, and then it just and it withered on the vine. Konei te kōrero a Judge Beecroft I te rauki. He said, wonderful document. Pera ia baushie, whakaia no, paitera. But they didn't get it through. Even they, and he said, I regret now, this is Beecroft, I regret that I didn't understand. I understood what whānau meant, or I got used to understanding it. But I didn't really know what hapu and iwi meant. And he said, if I did, I would have done better. Konei te koro te Pākehā, ki ngā Pākehā. So, Eru pēhea wau, because you're, sorry, Hone, go ahead.
No, I don't know so much that it withered on the vine. I think more so that government chose not to allow it to flourish, that vine. Agreed. They saw instinctively, a bit like actually, dare I say it, a bit like the Māori Party and the March to Parliament. They could not allow our hopes, our dreams, and our aspirations to be fulfilled in terms of something as simple in the foreshore and seabed as when we marched, of allowing the Māori Land Court to hear the case. It was a simple. We didn't even have any guarantee that we were going to win it, but government moved in and refused to allow it to happen. And it's kind of what they're doing here. A great idea has come forward, and now government has reacted by opposing us being able to take that forward. And when you go back to those days and to Tia Machu and all of them, I remember all of those guys. I used to drive around when I was working for the Opodi Trust Board.
I know. I was with Grace the other night. I stayed with her. We stayed up all night talking about you driving Uncle around and all those stories. It's marvelous. But it makes us remember that this fight isn't new. We've been, there has been many, many lines coming through and fighting the fight in their own places, I guess, eh? And then, of course, you know, leading that march as you did, and your whānau and the whānau. And I, you know, recalled your discussion recently with JT about that. Eru, can I just, your thesis was on 7AA and those things. Can you just talk a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, so I think I just want to say first there, like, tautoko katoa na hui ngā kōrero are cool. In terms of, I really agree with the point that the system refuses to change, and I would go as far to say that that's deliberate, and to use the words of Tākuta, actually everything is by design and deliberately. These laws have been introduced successively. First lot in 1989 after Te Puao Te Atatu, which we know through empirical evidence was a complete failure. And then recently, in the middle of last year, a whole new law reform, a whole new raft of laws were given effect, and those are reforms to the legislation that controls Oranga Tamariki, ironically named. And my analysis, not only of those provisions, but even in the last year, looking at the practice of the courts and all of the actors that are controlled by that act, absolutely nothing has changed. In fact, if anything, it's gotten worse. And that's the opinion of a lot of people on the ground, and even judges themselves in the family court that I've talked to will openly admit and openly say, no, these new laws, as exciting and as great as they might look on paper, have done absolutely nothing to change practice. And it's shocking, really, but it's not surprising. And it's exactly what I said in my thesis, that because none of these law reforms will change the system or the practices or the policies or the culture within the system, there was no way that this was going to lead, that they were going to lead to less of our babies being stolen from their own homes and thereby criminalized. Because when you look at the statistics of state care of children, Māori, our babies in state care, and then you compare those to the children that are in the youth justice system, youth prisons, they call them crossover kids. And so those that are basically in both systems, state care, youth justice. And then when you look at the statistics again of the kids, those crossover kids that end up in adult prison, it will blow you away. You may as well, if you're taking taking one of our babies from their home, from their whānau, from their whakapapa, when they are a baby, you may as well put them straight in adult prison, because that's the path that they walk. And that hasn't changed. That's been the case for the last few decades, and it's unlikely to change. The new laws, even though on their face they look impressive, they do nothing at a practical and systemic level. And so, until that change happens, however that may be, or however that may occur, our babies will continually be stolen and criminalized by the system.
Hey, have we gone the step of, we're knocking down Oranga Tamariki? Have we written the book on how we do it? Have we done that yet? Eru? All you brainy fellas, all you brainy young fellas.
Yeah, I think, Tino pointed out. And when I think about the future of, so right now we're in the space called a post-settlement era, and we see huge iwi corporations building massive infrastructure around fishing, fisheries, forests, managing all of these assets. And some iwi who were lucky enough to get property in Auckland, I'm sure we all know who that iwi is, they've built their own insurance policies, health insurance policies for their iwi members. And so if we look at those models and those blueprints, then you think, okay, well, surely we must be able to think about how we might create our own iwi sovereigntist systems to look after our own children. And that the other thing is, these new laws actually do provide a pathway for relationships between Oranga Tamariki and iwi, whereby Oranga Tamariki will basically give over certain powers to iwi to effectively act in place of Oranga Tamariki. But one of the biggest holes of that law is that it's completely at the whim of the chief executive of Oranga Tamariki.
Absolutely.
So it's an option, really, and we know that when there are options, they never fall in our favour. and discretion is our biggest enemy in this mainstream system. And so that, even though that's a good example of how it looks good on paper, but in practice it doesn't end up doing what it needs to do. But if those things were made, if those relationships were made mandatory, I have no doubt that a lot of our iwi hapu whānau can gather their resources, intellect, money, everything to build a system for our tamariki āhari ake nei.
And for instance, Edu, if you're talking about a 396, which was, are you talking about this 396 where I think it's called a cultural authority, so it allows that to occur still. And the reason I know that is because at some point in my DSW life, when it was called DSW before it was called SIPS and then it was called SIPFIS and so on, it's that there's one of those nehone that in Tai Tokero, really in its as it works as a 396, it still doesn't land in the place where you have full control of, and operationally every piece of it by your own ikanga, by your own system. It doesn't do that. It doesn't go far enough, I think, is what I'm saying. So when you're saying, Hone, have we written the book? This Saturday we will release our policy, which will look exactly like the expectations that we have. Yeah. But open the curtains. That was one of your that's your kaupapa, and you work that still for whānau.
Yeah, it's just a really simple thing. It came from knowing that going around when I was just the husband of the principal of our kura. She used to make me go on and pick up kids from kura if they weren't at kura, go around their home and pick them up. And she made me do it even when I was the MP. So, and I did it with new eyes, and I realised, shit, a lot of our poor people have got their curtains closed because they're hiding from the world, because they don't want the world to see what they don't have. And I noticed one home when I walked in and I had a bit of an argument with the guy lying on the couch. He wasn't the man of the house. He was just bludging off the woman of the house. And I opened the curtains, and the sunshine just came flooding into the house. And he was really upset that I did it, but I didn't care. And then I pushed the windows open and let some air in. I thought to myself, that's what we have to be doing here. We have to be opening the curtains on the homes and on the hearts and minds of our people, letting the sunshine and letting the air come in and just blow through, so that they start to feel whole again. And that's why I say in writing the book, not writing a book which fits with what it is that the Crown wants, but writing the book definitively Māori. This is how we will look after our children. And then, make that the standard, and then just say to the Crown, no, no, no. There's nothing acceptable until we get to this point. There may even be a fallback to a partnership arrangement, but we have to have a very clear statement of how we would do it. I like you, I'm a bit concerned too about the old corporate iwi. I think sometimes they get too caught up in contracts where there's going to be a dollar, to the point where I know when I was talking to one iwi leader about prisons, and he said to me, well, how much is there in this contract? I had a little chuckle to myself. I thought to myself, are you serious? How much money is there in imprisoning our own people? You know what I mean? So my concern isn't necessarily that we're writing a book where iwi have control of how our whānau are going to look in the future, because I think iwi have got some growing up to do themselves in terms of stepping away from that corporate mentality being their baseline. But a Māori point of view, just looking at the way you've raised your children, the way we think good standards that should apply. When somebody falls off the wagon, and it happens particularly to our people, because we're living on the edge of society anyway. So don't take much for us to fall off and take our kids down with us. How would we take those children, and how would we look after them? And how would we ensure that their future is as positive a future as we can give them? And never mind about the state, just how would we do it? Yeah, so good luck with I guess the policy stuff is step one in the process, but that's also a way of sending a signal to people that we have an understanding of what we'd like to do.
Yes.
I'd love to see the book.
I was I was with interviewed by a couple of the lawyers that's backing the case for Lady Moxon, and as I'm talking through, and they're typing away, and then there was a point where they asked me about the story that I told somewhere, and as I started to tell the story, so it's a papa who comes in. It's a really tough situation for him, and right then at that point, if I knew that if he was to walk into another office, he would not see that baby for 8 weeks. He would literally, it would just be removed. And that's not us. That's not our way. And it's not right. So I'm sitting down and then have a little hello with this gorgeous bubby, and then open the bag, right? And he would have been already judged, I know, if he was in that office. Open the bag, and I will always remember this, because if I hadn't opened that bag, and if someone else, they wouldn't have ever seen the care that he took to, I'll never forget it, all the clothes for Bubby were folded perfectly. They were nice. He had a little plastic bag of kai, and he had a fresh bottle of milk, and I'll never forget that. I'll never ever forget. Even in his state of he's broken up and so on, he still knew how to love and care for his baby. And I believe that is us. I believe that is us. And of course we can fall and fail, but it's still our job to pick that failure up and pick that, which is a strange word to use, pick ourselves up and bring us back to our essential us, which is our whānau us. And we can make mistakes, but I'll never forget that. And that story, so she's typing furiously and she goes, I think that story should come out in court. And I said, well, if it comes to that point, then there are many stories like that. There are many Māori, at least I know, that will tell that story that way. The assumption is that there are people listening. That's really the other part to this. But koinei mahalo tērā kōrero, so tērā. Kōrero. When we're even in that state. And so then Claudette rings this, and they have this great little kōrero this afternoon. She's asking about the second wave, hone, and the road checks. And so my mind turns to you and the road checks. What are you hearing coming through, hone?
We're preparing.
That's what I told her.
We did it last time out of love and out of concern for our people. This time, the iwi have come to the party and they were going to resource it properly. I think we've got training for our crews coming up next week. So that when we decide that we're going to go, we're just going to put up our roadblocks ourselves. We're going to put the checkpoints up, and then we're going to be really, really rigorous about it. Because, assuming Ashley Bloomfield is right, that a second wave is inevitable, assuming that a lot of our own relations, dare I say it, and other New Zealanders coming back into the country are feeling a bit entitled about how they shouldn't have to be parked up in a hotel, and as soon as they can get out, they're going to do a runner. All of those sorts of things tell me that we are going to have some issues with COVID in the future. I think the government's done a great job up until now. Our job is to make sure that that sense of strength and commitment to our own people, a bit like what you're talking about with Oranga Tamariki. We have to make a decision ourselves about what we're going to do to protect our communities. And then once we've made that decision, when the time is right, just do it. And if we get into trouble, well, we can always call Mariameno.
Yeah, you call me. That's right. I'm right there. I'll back you. I want to, Eru, can I just, so one of the questions I've been posed in the last couple of weeks is the social media, using social media, that seems to be our primary sort of platform, ki te kōrero ki a tātou. And then it leads to, and that's definitely a rangatahi, well, more than rangatahi platform. Is that to lead to, likes into votes, Eru? What's your sense? Because you've got Whakaaro Fridays. What are you hearing?
Yeah, that's the hope, I guess, that that does occur. But I guess clicking a like button is a lot easier than registering.
Yes.
About getting out and then going for a vote, ticking papers, etc. So that transition or that translation, we lose people in that space. Really, I think it goes to show that the voting system, as it is, surely should be simplified in a way that it is just a click of a button to put your vote in. We have a lot of the technology exists today. We have real me logins, which verify your identity, things like that. So I think, as opposed to just bagging on people that don't vote, to be like, get out of the house, go and vote, even though it might be easy for some people, if we could make it more convenient and use the technology that we have to just provide literally a click option for voting, then I'm sure that might help. But then the other side of it as well is education, and that's the crux of the Whakaaro Fridays, is to empower through education and to hopefully encourage people's own realization processes when it comes to the importance of voting, because that's probably actually 80% of it, is the fact that we don't get taught the things that we need to be taught at primary and high school or anything, to be able to join those dots and say, oh, actually, if I vote, then this leads to that, and then that means that, So it's those dots that need connecting as well, not just the technological dots. Yeah.
Do you think, is there a listening, Eru? I see a lot more activity to me, and I'm old, so I don't know what activity are you seeing? The activity on the media platforms?
For sure. Yeah, definitely. I think it's significant, and I think rangatahi, my generation in general, are getting more involved politically, because political participation is more than just voting. You think about ihumata, or the amount of people that showed up. That's political participation. I guess to the highest degree, going out, occupying land, and if we can, if rangatahi are willing to participate in that way, in those sorts of political kaupapa, then voting's easier compared to that. So hopefully we see more rangatahi voting in the upcoming election.
Hone, every week, ngā huia, she rings me, and she's so lovely. She's inviting, and she's coaching me each time when I'm online with her. It's great, because she's a kohanga and a kura baby, and she's just wired for the future, And then I say, oh, babe, is Auntie, and she goes, oh, no, Auntie, you're smashing it. And she looks after me all the time, and I'm just love her for that. But even in her and many like her, where they're e hara moa popo, moa yaya tunu nei.
Yeah, sure.
Hey, yeah, really. They're like, they're shoulder to shoulder. They're like, I feel it with many of our young ones, and I'm really excited. I am genuinely like, we can step away sooner than we thought. because I think they're just ready and they're coming through. Peheo whakaaro ki tēnā.
Yeah, actually, as it happens at our trust, our Aupōuri Ngāti Kahu Te Rarawa Trust, we just starting a number of business initiatives, and the 4 people running them, they're all younger than 35, 35 down to 25, and I recognize when I sit in the same room talking to them that their minds are already in another world. They're already flying, and it's sometimes having us at the helm sort of limits their ability to fly.
Very much.
So it's about trying to encourage them, and really, if anything, just making sure that if they do make mistakes, they don't crash and burn and stop. You know, that they get up and keep going and just challenge themselves to get better. Yeah. But, there's I mean, I've seen a few of Ngahuia's and heard some of her interviews that I love her stuff. Actually, she got a really positive way about her when she's interviewing people. She has a way of interviewing them so that it brings the best out of them, rather than interviewing them to, like how Pākehās do it. They interview people to score by trying to beat the people.
Waiting for the blow.
Yes. That I enjoy hearing and seeing her interviews because they're very positive. So I'm glad that's working out well for you, Gus.
Yes. Gee, all right. We're there. We're close to end. I can't see any. Oh well, there's lots of kōrero I hone. Arohoni kia kau ake. So, gee, lots. There we go. So 39, 38 days left. We're just out there. I was in Orake on Saturday with JT, Hone, and
when he was in Kaitaia.
Yeah, this Saturday. We're with you. Yeah, we're with you.
Right. Okay. All right.
We'll make it halfway. So we're at the markets in the morning, and then about 8 o'clock maybe. What time the markets open? 7:38?
Yeah, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock.
Okay. And then about 9 o'clock we're down to Ricky's whare, and JT will be up, and Aoirangi and the team, and lots of whānau from Kaitaia and Whangarei, Taitokero.
Oh,
and
we're in Kaitaia.
Yeah. At Ricky's place. I'm just thinking it might be now that I'm thinking about it. But anyway,
who's organising Saturday?
Eru, Oriel, number of us, the team.
Okay.
Our team.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nah, sweet.
All right. So we've got our kanai ordered from Paparore. I've got that all ordered, and the bread from our nanny Paraha over here. So yeah, he kai he kōrero, koina noiho.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Somebody needs to send me a poster so I can get a few printed and put up around the place.
Okay. Yep. Got it.
About what's happening on Saturday.
All right.
Yeah, so we can just get it up online. I suppose it's online already and I just haven't seen it.
Yeah. That's all right. You're a digital immigrant like me, cousin.
Yeah. And we can print some out as well. Come on.
Right. Rikas, thank you. Eru, it's us. Oh, well, Maui, whakakapika. Engari, Hone, is there anything you'd like to, say before we wind up? Send your love to JT, all the team. They're a great team, by the way, just saying. They're a mighty team. That Rawiri, he's okay. He's all right. No. It was great. He's great. All of us. There's Heather, there's Donna, there's Debbie, there's Taputa. Yeah, it's neat.
Yeah. No. Just keep going. Go hard.
Yeah.
Don't be concerned about anything. Don't be put off by anybody. Just go as hard as you possibly can. because it's you putting yourself out there. And,
Yeah.
you know, others who might want to criticize are those often are the ones who just sit on the sidelines and want to do nothing themselves. So, you know, congratulations to you for standing to your whānau and your team, for your backing. And, yeah, like I say, anything I can do to help, let me know. Somebody send me some stuff tonight, eh? Or what's happening on Saturday. Ka wai?
Done. All right. Oh, well, big love to you. And love to Hilda, everybody there.
Yep, ka wai.
Although 22 mokopuna, too cute. Eru, Maui, whakakapi, please.
Kia ora.
Ka pēri ake nei te ki te kōrero ki te pautu wārongo o te whare, hei te kia no mumuri ake nei, kia wā te ai, kia tīna.
Tina.
Tīna.
Ie, tai.
Hi.
Thank you.